We have a couple of new team members who will be working along with us on NHCX. You might have heard of names. They were already working on the ABDM integration part. Now they are also looked in for NHCX, and we have a couple of new team members internally who have joined NHCX. So, what our agenda for today will be, maybe we can start from the basics of fire. Like you can walk us through what are the basics, what are the resources, and everything. And then at the end of the session, you can walk us through the NHCX fire profiles, what are the use cases, and maybe also tell the team how to create a bundle and what are the major things that you have to keep in mind while validating a fire bundle also for the entire team. So initial level of validations everyone in the team can handle. Then
Mhm.
they maybe reach out to you for any further queries. I
So,
think everyone has joined.
Raghav, today with me, Chinmay here. So he's closely working with me and coming on a replacement with the
Uh, who is there? Sorry, I couldn't get you.
So am I audible now?
Yeah, yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So today with me, Adarsh is here, the Chinmay is here. He will be conducting the today's training. So he is
Okay, okay.
closely working with us on NXC's profile also. So
Okay, okay.
Chinmay, over to you.
ठीक है.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello, team.
Chinmay.
Yeah. Hi, Raghav. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. You can start now.
Okay. So I'm sharing screen. Yeah. Yeah. So while I'm doing that, uh, sharing is not. So, a brief intro about me. I have been working with the NRCeS team on the fire standards for the past 2 years, and I have been closely involved in the, initial, means I joined at the later stages of the NHCX profile team development and have involved in all the other aspects for NHCX implementation. Uh, Actually, was a minute. Let me share. Yeah. Is my screen visible now? If you could just say yes, that would be fine.
Yes, Chinmay, it is.
Yes.
Okay, uh, so hello everyone once again. My name is Chinmay, and yeah, so I will be taking you through the basics of fire and how the fire is involved in the NHC use case problem solving in India. So let's move on to the agenda. So for the agenda, we will be going through first what actually fire is.
Sorry to interrupt. Is it okay if we can proceed with recording this session?
Madam, recording is already on.
It is being recorded, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Hmm. So as I said, we will be walking through what first fire is all about. We will be also going through the specification guide for the fire, that what exactly are the key concepts of fire, the resources, the data types, what are profiles, what are value sets, code systems, and all that. We will be then moving on to the adoption of fire in NHCX, and we will be introducing the fire implementation guide that has been developed to represent the profiles that Ago was talking about the NS6 profiles as such. We will also be showing you the reference implementations and the user samples. We create a bundles of fire programmatically, and also on the part of validation and the common tips to on how to check for the validation part of a bundle. So let me start on FHIR. So the FHIRs, first we come to the full form, stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resource. The main use of FHIR as a standard is to facilitate the interoperability between systems. In our healthcare ecosystem, there are multiple partners involved. We have hospitals, we have insurance companies, we have third party medical cleanups, medical CMS systems, and all that. So, in order to facilitate the exchange of data between these systems seamlessly, there is an international standard, it's called FHIR, developed by HL7org, that is used to represent how exactly the data format for exchange of this data between the systems would be. So, the data formats that FHIR has provided as a standard are typically categorized into various categories such as clinical and administrative healthcares. These are some of the categories, and each particular for and each particular just a minute and each particular data that is being exchanged, it is known as a resource. So we will move on to the next slide. Uh, so coming up more about the FHIR. So FHIR provides us an internet-based approach for connecting different discrete elements, and we aim and FHIR also provide us with a large variety of resource types for different categories for like NIS, clinical, administrative, financial type in order to describe the data that is being exchanged between the system. FHIR as a whole, being an international standard, was developed and designed in such a way that we can solve the majority of common use cases that are commonly observed across the entire globe level. Like we could say for a patient, the name and all the stuff that is common across for a given entity. Like say for patient, we could say that we need a certain type of data. These particular common use cases are already mentioned in the base specification of FHIR. These particular data formats are representable in various types such as XML, JSON, and RDF. I will come on to that, what exactly I mean by that. And one of the most important uh, one of the most important feature we could say about FHIR is that it is extensible by design. The given base specification of FHIR for a data format can be modified so that we can customize it for our own use cases. And this is the main point because of which the FHIR data standard is used for solving NHCX use cases or NHCX or to implement standard payload structure for NHCX. We will come to that. Along with this, it also allows us to incorporate the terminology bindings in order to or populate data for a given resource or represent a particular data as a which is a part of using codes. Now this code would be representing a particular concept that is described by the terminology system. So moving on, now before even using FHIR, why should we use FHIR? So this here and some of the plus points of using FHIR. So it is the implementation focus standard with implementation libraries and example for reference. FHIR being an international standard and being in existence for a long time has a support for vast majority of implementation in various programming language, so that it makes it easier for implementers to describe the standard programmatically and help in exchange of data between the systems. It is free for use with no restrictions. It supports readable serialization format. What I mean by that is the structure when populated with actual data is also displayed in a format that is human readable, as well as it is also support for machine processing internally. There are various web standards that it supports like XML, JSON, HTTP. There are various exchange paradigms. We can use REST APIs, we could use messaging, document services. As I said, the most important plus point for FHIR is that it is extensible by design. This is the most important feature that is why it is so much popular, and also allowing us to bind the terminologies from various terminology systems. So Let me walk you through the FHIR specification first. So let me just open it over here. Uh, I will go over here. Now, in order to go to the FHIR specification, we go to this particular URL. Just a minute. Uh, yeah. So we go to SLC/FHIR/RFO at the home, and this here represents the entire specification documentation. In particular, we are using version 4.0.1, and the release that we are using is known as R4. Here you can see there are a lot of levels. These levels just represents what are the supporting documentation about actually the FHIR standard is. Now, in the specification, we will go one by one in the key concepts that are involved in FHIR. So let's go through. So a resource in FHIR represents a unit of exchange of data that is justified in interoperability. What I mean by that is a resource in FHIR represents a unit of structure which can be seamlessly exchanged between the systems, and that is considered as a what you could say could be used to serve the purpose of actually um, actually representing some actual data about the entity. So if you consider resources, there are various categories, as you can see over here, of how exactly the resources are categorized. So there are categories by classification such as foundation, base, clinical, financial, specialized, alphabetically, and most important point about this classification is the maturity one. So the FHIR resources as a whole are divided into different levels of maturity, with the lowest being the level 0 and the more highest being the level 5. If you see, this particular resource has a n flag after it. So the normative content here represents that this resource is stabilized now, with additional changes may be expected in the future, but these changes won't break the system, won't be a breaking changes. What won't be a breaking changes, and it will be backward compatible. By breaking changes, what I mean is that the structure that is being currently represented here as normative, any new addition will not break that structure. So implementers can rest easy, as it will not affect their uh, uh, already existing implementation in own systems. So let me just walk through a basic resource which is commonly used patient. If you see here, you can see the
Just a
content.
question here, Chinmaya, if I may. So
Yes,
level one, you mean to say, so higher level, higher the maturity. So
yes,
level one means it's a very basic and it has a lot of scope of changes
improvement
or
and
change.
changes. Yeah.
Right. So how do you, how, I use a lot of resources. Frankly speaking, I had never known level of maturity. That's why this question may sound silly. So
Mhm.
how do you identify this particular resources of level one, so in future if I do any changes it's going to impact, so how do you identify the level, the maturity?
As I have said that here in the classification part, they have already mentioned the resources maturity level. So whenever you open a resource as well, or let's say a patient, you can see the maturity level being represented here in the top bar. If you see maturity level
Mm-hmm.
N, if you go to any other resource with a different level, it will be mentioned as such. So let's say like if you the maturity level will be 3. With the new release of the particular wire, they may increase the maturity at it is being defined by the standard development team as
Mm-hmm.
such. So that is the you can maturity level for a resource.
Okay. So before implementation, you tend to say, I must know maturity, otherwise I may have problems later on while implementation. Is that so?
So, Meenakshi wants to add on this. The maturity level already been defined by the HL7,
Yes.
and most of the resource that we are using in the ABDM and NXCS are on the normative level. So there's least chance to get breakdown on that. Further than the release R4, like the version we are using of the FHIR in our ABDM and NXCS use case are to have most resource that we're using at normative level, and this release they're not gonna like break much. So
Okay.
when we are
Okay.
shifting to R5 or any further release for the FHIR, there might be a huge change with level 0 resources.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so continuing on the resource part, as I was saying, a resource content page describes the basic description. As you can see, the it here says about the patient that it's demographics and other administrative information about an individual or animal receiving care or other health related services. Plus, it also tells us about the scope and usage of this particular resource, where it might be used, what is the scope of its scope of the data being represented in the resource, etc. So, coming down, if you see, this is the structure of a patient resource that the FHIR has defined. Here, for a given patient resource, you will elements that are represented over here, such as his identifier, the gender, the birth date, name, contact, etc. Along with this, if you see at the top, the same is represented in various different forms, such as XML, JSON, Turtle. What most implementers look at is basically the structure that is human readable format. Now, the important points that I will tell you about the resource at this level is the cardinality and the data type. So, cardinality for a given element defines the lower bound and upper bound, representing how many times the particular element is populated. So, for example, if you see there is an active element with a cardinality 0.1. So, here the lower bound is 0 and the upper bound is 1. 0 indicates that the active element may be not popular, is not required since the lower bound is 0. And the upper bound indicates how many time it may be populated or how many entries of this particular element would be present in the resource when it is being populated. So in this case, this would be 1. I will explain more on this cardinality when we come to the NHCX profiles in more depth. Moving on to next, for each element, there are different type of data types that are provided. So in order to look at the collective set of all the data types that are provided by the FHIR, you can go into the home section and here you can check out the data types. So if you see, as per in the diagram shown, the data types are collectively defined into four categories. There are primitive types, there is general purpose data types, metadata types, and special purpose data types. Out of all of these data types, in the context of ABDM and NHCX, most commonly used profile data types are, I will come over to here, to the PPT. So these are identifier, human name, date time. Just a minute. So the common most used data types are identifier, human name, date time, integer, string, boolean, and backbone element. All of these data types on majorly are very self-explanatory, as they are, if you have if we are speaking in from a developer's perspective, they are usually mapped to the similar data types in a programming language. The ones that are point of notice or the ones that are very different, we could say, is the codable concept. This code and codable concept data type, and there is one more which is as reference. So I will go to that coming here. So the if you see here, there is codable concept, coding. So these particular data types are used in context with something known as a terminology binding. That is used this particular data type is used to represent a code from a particular code system. Now I will explain what the code system and a value set is. So here, if you check out in the home page, in the resources section, they have provided us with the code system and value set. So code system it basically represents mode. So code system is a resource that is used to declare representation of codes that represent a inherent meaning. So let me go back over here. So code system defines a set of concepts with a coherent meaning. For each code, we would have a code, we would have a display, and we would have a definition. Some of the popular code systems that are used are Snowmed City, Loink, and there is ICD-10 as well. Each of this code
Chinmaya,
system, yes,
hi, just one thing. While we were discussing about cardinality, we touch about on flags.
yeah, those part I will explain in the profile
Acha.
sections,
Okay.
Raghav, a much better way. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, sure. So, as I was saying, for a code system is a set of concepts with a coherent meaning. Terminologies that we can use for the code system, we have Snowmed City, Loink, and ICD-10. In each of this particular code system, they have defined codes representing various medical concepts. So, these medical concepts these medical concepts are represented by a single unique identifier code so that it is very easy for machine processing part. And then we have another resource which is known as a value set. So the codes defined in these different systems can be used and represented in a value set. So we can take some codes from Snowmed City, we could take some codes from Loink, and we can take some codes from other terminology system. We can club them together in a list, and this list would be called as value set. So this set of codes that we are creating in a value set are being used for a particular context. So let's say that moving to the this thing, if I go to the resources and if I go to the patient, here you can see that for the gender, they have provided a list of the gender. And the data type that being used here is a code. In fact, we could use a codable concept or coding if it is defined as the data type. And in this value set, if you go down, you can see there are four codes that are being defined. The system that these codes are taken from is defined here. All the codes come from this particular code system. Now, this could also be Snowmed City, Loink, etc. So, so far, as we have seen what a basic resources, what a code system is, what are the various data types that FHIR provides, and what a value set is. Coming to one more important resource in FHIR is a bundle. Now, all these individual resources that we can create in a FHIR or we can populate with data can be exchanged between the systems. But in order to, but that would make that would be involving multiple of transactions. Rather, what we can do is we can bring them together and represent as a single collection which represents a logical purpose, and we could send them in a single transaction. That is, and for that particular thing, resource used in FHIR is a bundle. So if you check bundle, the definition here says a container of collection of resources. Container for collection of resources. There are various type of bundles, and you can check them out over here. As you see, there is a type element that defines what are the various different types of bundles that are being used. I will come to the part where how exactly we are using the bundle also for the six workflows. So far we have seen what are the basic concepts in FHIR. Now, one more important point that I mentioned at the start of the this particular presentation was that FHIR is extensible by design. So if we go back over here, So this is what a bundle would be. Like here, the individual resources can be transmitted as multiple transaction, but we could also club them together so that by clubbing them, they represent a logical purpose or they show similar meaning that this whole thing together represents a particular detail about particular workflow we are working upon and being transmitted as a single transaction. So what I was talking about is fire specification as a base that we have seen so far, certain variety of use cases. All the elements that are mentioned in various different resources are are covering most of the common use cases. And if you actually look into the design and the design of the particular resource, they tend to be more flexible. As I said in the cardinality, there is a upper bound. So in the base specification itself, they are not that restrictive. They are flexible. They support as much as freedom as you can give in, defining the data for your structure. But as we come to the local context for a given country, there comes particular use cases where we need to restrict that particular resource design to follow a certain set of rules. So the resources can be modified in a way that we want to, take the element that particularly represent the current resource and we want to constrain them. Like we want to change their cardinalities. So because we have a rule that we have a rule that that particular element must follow. Or we want to modify the value set that is represented for a given element with our own one. As you can see, a value set is basically a collection, of course, from various different terminologies. FHIR does provide us with the options to create our own value sets as well as own code systems. So we may have a need to add a new data element or data types to the existing resource. So all this process of modification of a resource results into a end product which is known as profiles. Now these particular profiles represents a set of rules that are being applied on a resource to solve a problem using in terms of FHIR standard. Now, what are allowed in profiling? So we can define which particular elements in a resource are required or optional. As I said, we can add additional elements if if you think that particular element is required for additional data that must be populated for a given profile. We can change the binding terminologies or our own defined value sets and much more. So this is how we are extending the base resource that is provided by FHIR and creating our own use case required profiles. So that's the difference between a resource and a profile. Now, as I said, all of this customization, such as creation of our own profiles, creation of our own value sets, code systems, etc., will result in multiple of such entities. And these entities needs to be clubbed together in order to be provided to the implementer for him to understand that this is how we are supposed to use our own profiles and implement them for the particular use case. So before how do we club all of these entities together, I will tell you how exactly we are using FHIR for adoption of FHIR in NHCX. So as a this thing, let me show you the technical specifications for the NHCX. So as a part of NHCX workflows, there are a number of API endpoints that have been created. As you can see, there are for coverage eligibility, there is pre-authorization, predetermination, claim submission, etc., etc. So in order to define a payload for all of the API endpoints that are being used while the while we are consuming these APIs, the payload structure for all of these APIs was defined using the FHIR standards. Now, as we know that for each particular API consumption, there are certain rules that the payload structure must follow. So we have created a bunch of profiles based on the FHIR resource using the profiling terms and created profiles. And all the other related customized resources for FHIR that we have created are clubbed together and published on the web. This particular resource is known as a implementation guide. So by definition, if you look at over here, you can see here in the home, and here you will find the definition for an implementation guide. So an implementation guide is a set of rules that tells you how the FHIR resources are used to solve a particular problem with associated documentation for supporting. And they also clarify how particularly the FHIR resources, in this case, since it is customized for solving the problem, it would be profiles and how they are being used. And they are published on the web as a part of the publishing process. So in order to check out the implementation guide for uh, NHCX profiles, you can visit the NRCeS.in website. Here you can see in the standard section, you would see ABDM FHIR profiles. This will redirect you to the FHIR implementation guide for ABDM. And here we have defined the NHCX profiles. So these are the bunch of customized FHIR resources that have been modified with after understanding the use cases and the API endpoint consumption workflows, all that are related to the NHCX, and the profiles have been created. So if you see over here, the description, we have defined various key use cases and workflows which are satisfied, being satisfied using this particular resources. So here you can see we have to get the provider and payer details. That is a workflow. We have eligibility for a coverage, whether it's eligible or not, whether the claim auth request, how to send it, how to settle a claim, what are the payment notification, payment acknowledgement, etc. So for all of this, we have created a profiles. So let me walk you through a particular profile in order to help you understand it better. So before even going over here, if you see here, we have created a claim profile. This is based on the claim resource of FHIR. If you see in the URL that is being shown over here in the bottom part, the URL points to the R4 claim resource. So, and here we have provided a definition as to what exactly the profile is all about. So this profile sets a minimum expectation for the providers and payers and insurers to exchange the financial information and supporting clinical information. So let's look into the profile. Here, the important point to note is a given profile has a structure that can be, categorized into certain parts for easier understanding. So let me show you how. If you look over here, I think it is just a minute. It's after this. So as I have already discussed the key use cases, here we have on the FHIR implementation guide. Uh, okay, I think I have missed it somewhere. Just a minute. Okay. Huh. So as I have said, these are key parts of a resource. A resource itself can be divided into various parts for a better understanding. Each resource has a metadata and a resource identity section that is common for all. Then all the other parts are the things that are being populated for the actual data. Like this is the human readable text that is generated. There is an extensions. As I said, extension is a way for, representing the additional elements that are defined in the profile. And then there is a standard, like this is the identifier, the name element, telecom. So here, if you see how exactly the identifier element is being populated for a patient, how a name is populated, how the telecom details are being populated. So if we come back to the profile, you can see here the profile has various different views as well. Now, when we customize a resource and create a profile, after publishing, these particular views are generated by the related as a output of the process. The main two views that to be considered are the differential table and the snapshot table. Other also represent the same data but with a different minor scale changes as to how it is. So in the differential table shows you what exactly are the changes that have been added in the profile as compared to the base resource. So if we go over here, let me just minimize it. So in a given profile, if suppose a element is modified, that particular element's entry would be shown in a differential table. So here an identifier element has been modified in some way as compared to the base resource, and hence it is visible in the differential table. Similarly, all the elements that are being shown in the differential table have been modified in some or the other way as compared to the base resource. When we come to the snapshot table view, the snapshot table view represents the changes that have been done in the profile along with what are the original structure of the base resource. So here you will find exactly all the changes that are done in the profile plus whatever was already present in the base resource. So these are the two views that are important for viewing of a profile. Now coming to the point of flags. So as I said,
So one
flags
quick
give you the
question here, Chinmay. So
yeah
how do you identify whether this had this element had, looking at the snapshot table, because that's the I am assuming the superset. So how do you
yeah
identify whether this had gone change and this one is all matured?
regarding the change part, it is as I said that if a given particular element has been modified somehow for a given resource, it
It will
will
be
be
tangential.
yes, and
Correct.
the same changes will be shown in the snapshot as well. So it will be like what the changes have been done. It will be like a differential view plus whatever unmodified elements of the base resource are there. That's all. So if you want to identify that which elements for a given resource has been changed in a profile, you just look at the differential table view. That's the way to go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So now next I'm coming to the flags part that I was going to explain. So the flags represents an information about the use of element. This particular flag will provide you extra details that the implementers must keep in mind while defining the structure in their own systems. So most of the common flags that are used in the NHCX profiles is S. Now this S represents a must support element. So for an from an implementer's perspective, when he looks at this particular claim resource and when he's trying to actually mimic this structure in his own application or the end system, then he must keep in mind that when this particular structured payload will come to his system, he should be able, he should have the provision to support the data that is populated for this particular element. So, what I mean to say is, if you look at the supporting info element, here if you look at the cardinality, as I said, cardinality represents the lower bound and upper bound. The lower bound represents whether the element needs to be populated or not, and upper bound represents how many times it is being populated. So in this case, for supporting info, if you see the lower bound is 0, so since the lower bound is 0, the supporting info element may not be populated. But since we have added a flag with must support S, the implementer in his own system must have a provision to accept the data in case it is being populated, even though it is said here in the cardinality that it may not be populated. So flag provides the additional information to the implementers on how the elements must be handled in their own system. Coming to the upper bound, as you see, this represents a star.
Chinmay,
So
sorry to
when
cut you. Just a clarification.
yes,
So even though the cardinality says 0, if it has
yes,
a flag, if an
yes,
element has a flag, then the
yes.
integrator must uh, implement that element, is what you mean, right?
in terms of implementing means in his system, there should be this support to capture the data for the element if it is being populated in the payload.
So
That
the
is what I
system
mean to
should
say.
be capable enough.
Yes, should be able to handle it.
Okay, got it.
Yes,
Chinmaya,
yes,
uh, like cardinality is 1 to 0 or 0 to 1, but
yes,
there are some fields those are not in must support category.
yes,
And we are talking about interoperability. So if
yes,
there is any element, then someone can send it.
yes,
Exactly.
So
My question is
how
also
we
the
will
same.
how we will manage that one if we are not putting it into must support category?
Actually, my question is exactly the same, Chinmaya. See, it
mhm,
might a particular element might be optional. That's fine. Cardinality could be 0, 0, 1. That's fine. I it's
yes,
optional. I may send, I may not send.
yes,
But the recipient should always, for that matter, be prepared that any value could be sent, whether it's optional or mandatory, right? So
yes.
then, what's the importance of flag then?
Okay.
Actually, ma'am, there is a slight difference between the cardinality and the flag that must support is here. The cardinality is restrict that particular element should be there in the resource, but in many of the cases, there might be a chance whether we do not want that information or the HIP, the provider, send that information, and other provider may wish to send that information. So the must support element is basically for the health information user that is receiving that information. So their system or their application must have the capability to acknowledge that information.
So that's what, Gaurav, my
Huh?
system, I'm the user, my system should be able to acknowledge all of the element. It should be capable of acknowledging all of the element. Why? Because suppose Yogendra is the provider, okay? He may be sending five elements only which are mandatory, okay? All others cardinality is zero, say. But
Mhm.
Meghna's system, they are pitch perfect, they will send each and every element, whether the cardinality is 0 or 1. But my system should be able to accept and read both Yogen's as well as Meghna's this, right? So as a user, I have to be, my system should be capable enough to read all of that, right? So the flag, for me, still do not understand. I feel flag is irrelevant because I should be able to read all of that. That's what
Uh,
Yogendra is also trying to convey, I believe.
Ma'am, when we talk in terms of FHIR, the individual resource can be used in multiple use cases. If you're talking about the claim, so claim can be used in multiple use cases, like we are going for a pre-authorization, we are going for the predetermination or the enhancement or claim request. So there are multiple use cases we are fulfilling with this resource. So there might be case some implementers do not want each and every element. Ideally, should be there that all elements should be acknowledged and they should be stored in the database. But from a FHIR perspective, this element is like flagged as the importance to providing the importance in the structure.
Uh,
Okay.
Ma'am, also I would like to add here that there are instances where we are using the claim resource, मतलब any resource in particular, but we do not want to pass all the relevant information. Like every time, if like for example, if we are submitting a claim bundle, we need patient ka entire detail. But if we are submitting something else and we need patient ka only relevant information,
Hmm.
then also this flag can be helpful. Ki we have the capability, but we are sending only the mandatory fields that are required. In general, you are right कि ideally तो सारा कुछ ही होना चाहिए, and we suggest our integrators also to implement it entirely, but it depends on the use case to use case as well.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Chinmaya. Thanks, Raghav.
Okay.
Thanks, Yogendra, for taking up the question.
So, yeah, as I was saying, cardinality for the lower and upper bound. Coming to the point of the reference, as I have said that the three,
Chinmay, there are other flags also, no? Summary and all of that.
actually, Raghav, in terms of the flags that are mostly used in NHCX profiles, the must support flag is the only one that is commonly used.
Uh,
We have not
I
defined as
understand,
such
but
some
can
summary.
you cover the flags in like very short? like rest of the flags also.
Okay,
I can do that. Can you
okay.
open the snapshot table?
Yeah, sure.
So there are some other flags like submission, the question mark, and exclamation mark. The like this mostly we use in we have a file server, complete file server setup, and in that case we are fetching the information. These flags comes into the picture. Uh, the submission part is like getting a summary from a server. Like I want patient details from my file server. I want to hit a API and want essential information only. So there's like parameters there, hyphen summary equals to true. So whenever I hit that parameter with my API, the server all element that are flagged as this submission. So only the essential important information with that are marked as submission by from the FHIR, only that information will come to my end. So whenever we want some essential information, only the summary of that resource, this flag is useful. When we talk about the exclamation and the question mark modifier or the flag, it says that a particular element is like optional, but set as something meaning to that resource or that element. So Chinmay, if you can open observation resource.
Yeah, sure.
Like Gaurav, at the time of
Uh,
implementing, like for example, if we are creating a FHIR bundle, do we need to keep in mind summary resources, or do we need to include that in our JSON, or is it something that is handled by the FHIR server?
Summary is like for the file server, if we have a complete setup and we want that
Okay.
information, in that case modifier like this question mark and the exclamation mark is kind of important when we like have a resource that any element that have this flag, that means that if we set true or and put any value, it will change the meaning of the resource. So if we see the status of this resource, Chinmay, you can zoom a little bit on the status, observation dot status.
Oh, yeah, sure. Here.
Yeah. So if the observation status says it's a modifier element, okay. So if I say the status is entered in error, so that means that observation is changed to an error, and we might not fetch that information from this resource. Talking terms of PMJ, I don't remember the word. There's something package code or called as error. Raghav, if you may.
Yeah. So, Gaurav, there is also one for the coverage eligibility, right? The status that we send,
Mhm.
that is also a modifier element in which if we send the purpose as auth requirements or benefits,
Hmm.
something like
Mhm.
that, then the meaning of that bundle changes and we get a response accordingly.
Yes, yes.
I'm right, right?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
then
So in
there
the
are stratifications and
Mhm.
everything also.
So stratification is like we set that modifier as like true or any parameter that is provided there. It will change the meaning that it's not coming from the patch code of the PMJY. It's coming from the stratifications. And
Chinmay, can you go to the coverage eligibility request, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I think here.
Not the bundle, the resource.
Yes.
the purpose is clear. This is
Acha,
in
this is this is
uh,
not a modifier.
no modifier you can see in the items.
Ha. Under
Hmm.
Can you
item.
It's
explain
like
this
changing
modifier one more time, Gaurav? I'm sorry, I could not get this.
modify something you like it's if it says uh, 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 Chinmay, can you go to the item?
Uh, Actually, your voice is breaking. Where is it?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you were saying?
Uh, Go to the item part.
Yeah, sure. In the item element.
Hmm. Item this product or service.
Yeah, in the fire extension cannot be ignored even if unrecognized.
So if So some values or the extension is provided here, and there's a not here, I guess. No, the observation वाला example suits. वही वही वो एक बार खोल लीजिए
Okay.
observation में. That
Hmm.
so when the observation status is saying this is modifier element. Okay. So now whenever I say this element is set some value, it's entered in any error. So that servers is directly indicating that the observation should not be taken from this observation resource. So this particular modifier value or this particular element need not टू बी इग्नोर अगर इसको भी ऑप्शनल भी दे रखा है फ्रॉम HL7 के अगर फायर लैंग्वेज में बात करूं अगर ये ऑप्शनल है और इसको एंटर्ड इन एरर दे रखा है कोई ऐसा फ्लैग सेट कर रखा है जो इस पूरे रिसोर्स का मीनिंग चेंज कर सकता है अब कोई ऐसा हो सकता है केस जहाँ पे स्टेटस तो उसने दे दिया एंटर्ड इन एरर उसने पूरी ऑब्जर्वेशन पॉपुलेट कर रखी है तो जो सर्वर होगा वो सबसे पहले आके यही चेक करेगा कि इसको इसकी फ्लैग वैल्यू क्या सेट कर रखी है इफ इट्स ट्रू और फॉल्स और समथिंग जो वैल्यू सेट प्रोवाइड कर रहा है उसके बेसिस पे वो जस्टिफाई करेगा कि इंफॉर्मेशन उसको कैप्चर करनी है या नहीं करनी है
मतलब modifier could be I I
पर
still
इट्स डिफाइनिंग द एलिमेंट उसका पर्पस डिफाइन कर रहा है
हाँ मतलब उसका सिर्फ पर्पस डिफाइन है बट वो वैल्यू जानी है या मुझे रीड करनी है कि नहीं या मुझे भेजना है
वो
कि नहीं
वो
भेजना इट विल
वो तो
डिपेंड ऑन द कार्डिनलिटी ओनली
कार्डिनलिटी
ना।
यस यस यस
हाँ हाँ ओके
उस
ओके
पूरे रिसोर्स रीड करना है नहीं करना है वो उस पर डिपेंड करेगा या फिर उस सेक्शन ऑफ द एलिमेंट अगर अंदर कोई एलिमेंट ऐसा है जो हमको इस फ्लैग से डिनोट किया हुआ है जो सर्वर उस पर्टिकुलर एलिमेंट को रीड करना है नहीं करना है उसकी वैल्यू पे डिपेंड करेगा अगर
हाँ
वो
तो
ट्रू है तो
मॉडिफायर इज एज सच नॉट वेरी देन फॉर द इम्प्लीमेंटर मॉडिफायर का
yes,
उतना वैल्यू नहीं है
हाँ
राइट।
हाँ 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 मैम इसलिए वो
ठीक है
उसने
ठीक
मत सपोर्ट ही
गॉट
एक्सप्लेनेशन
इट थैंक यू।
Okay, so as we were going through the base profile, as I said, there is two views that implementers should know, a differential table and a snapshot table. And as we have talked about flags and cardinality so far, along with the different data types that are provided in the FHIR, we will come to the point of bundles now. So if you see in the profile section, there is a health claim artifacts that lists the bundles that are used as page structure for the APIs that are mentioned in NHCX and all the other supporting individual resources that are included in the bundle. So as I had shown you in the base specification, bundle is nothing but a collection or a collection for container of resources, a container for collection of resources. So when we come here again, if you look at the NHCX, we have defined total of 6 bundles. So for claim, we have a claim bundle, we have a claim response bundle, coverage ability requests, we have 2 bundles, we have a basic bundle for insurance plan details, and then other supporting workflows that are involved with the claim, coverage, eligibility, insurance plans are covered in the task bundle. So if you go into the claim bundle and if you check out the differential table, you will see that for a bundle, there is an entry element. And if you see at the structure of it, it supports one entry that is mandatory and which is claim. So in a claim bundle, there can be multiple claim entries, but a minimum of one is expected. And the type of bundle that is defined over here has a fixed value of collection. As I said, there are different types of bundle. For all of the NHCX health artifacts, the types is collection. So here, while populating a bundle, we would be adding the entry for a claim resource with a claim profile, my bad. And if you look at the example sections, the example sections represent the various workflows. Like for enhancement, how a bundle should look like, how a pre-authorization bundle would look like, predetermination and settlement. So let's look at one of them, which is a pre-authorization. Here, this is the actual data that is populated for a claim bundle with the case where the claim use is for pre-authorization. So basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm as a uh, provider, a healthcare provider, I'm sending a request to the payer with listing the details that I'm going to be performing this particular diagnosis, which is an angiography, an angioplasty of blood, and I'm checking for a particular approval of this medical services. So if you see here, the resource entry claim has the data populated. Now a claim resource, if I will just open it in duplicate side by side in order to give you a better view. So in a claim resource, while populating the data, we may need to define that for whom the claim that we are sending. So here if you see, the patient data is represented using patient element, and here we are referencing a patient profile instance. So in terms of actual population, if you see, patient data is represented by a patient profile entry here. This is resource patient, and this is the human readable part of that particular instance, that his name is Adarsh Agrawal, he has a date, and etc etc. So all the supporting references for the claim resource that are that needs to be populated while actually filling up the data are also a part of bundle entries. So here there will be a claim entry, and along with it all the related profile entries must also be added as a part of bundle. So if I am saying that I'm adding a patient, I'm populating the patient element with the patient profile entry, then this profile entry must be populated as a part of bundle. So if we look at the structure over here, there is a use pre-authorization. I have sent the billable period details, when it was created, who is the insurer, to whom I'm sending for the request for the mandatory check, what are the additional details, like what are the care teams involved, what I'm actually sending the request for the approval, like I'm trying to do the diagnosis, angiography and angioplasty of blood vessel. Along with it, in the insurance section, if you look at the claim, there is this supporting info. Okay, sorry. Sorry. In the insurance section, since this section is mandatory, we are providing the coverage details using the coverage profile, which is a part of NHCX profiles that we have developed. So the coverage details are populated using the coverage profile instance here. We have added what is the identifier for that particular thing, what is the status, who is the patient, which in this case would be the patient that for which we are submitting the claim, and etc. In a response to this, we may receive a claim response bundle containing the claim response. And if you look at the claim response, this profile represents the application level adjudication outcomes or application level error that occur as a result of processing a supplied claim resource. So all the details that are related for the claim response would be captured in this claim response bundle and be shared back to the provider. So if you consider all of these bundles, you can now easily, go through the bundles, check out what exactly their structure is, how we have added our own rules for NHCX use cases, and you know, how the individual profiles are also used for populating the bundle, and we are using the bundle to represent a collection of data for a given workflow. So here,
Uh, yeah, one more
yes.
thing. Can you go back to the claim bundle? and there is a essential table. What
Yes.
what do we mean by this slices for entry? What does that mean?
Okay, so basically over here, if you see, I will explain it in this way. A bundle resource has an entry element, okay, that
Yeah.
has a cardinality 0 to star. So here the entry element can support multiple multiple, what do you say, uh, data or data entries in it, right? Since the cardinality is star, so we can have one or we can have more than one, and the entry element itself is optional. So while profiling, what we have done is here we have sliced it. A slice represents the same entry element but with a certain modifications. So what we have done over here is we have taken the entry element, we have modified it, and we have said that one particular entry in that particular bundle would be for the claim. Similarly, we can add it like entry can also add entry, practitioner such that. So the same element in the entry element for the bundle, we are just doing it for the, what do you say, representation of how the structure of the bundle should be for an implementer's ease.
Okay, okay.
He will be looking at it and he will see that there is an entry for a claim, so I must populate a claim profile entry here for the bundle, like that.
Right, right. So basically, like we made it mandatory कि at least claim should be there in the claim bundle,
Yes.
but there could
Yes.
be multiple entries and you can slice. So slice for entry is one, and then entry can be multiple, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. So
got it.
like for the claim, as I said, since this is